everyone. I am Jonna Willoughby Lore. I am your host of the Reach the Stars podcast. And today my guest is Josh Tan. He is a life alchemist. And for those of you who don't know what that means, he supports women, business owners, and entrepreneurs to eliminate hidden patterns that keep them loveless, playing small, and not able to give back to the people that they love. Also known as life coach, spiritual coach, healer, meditation guide, and tarot reader, and many other things. So welcome to the show, Josh. Will you tell everyone a little bit more about yourself?
Thank you, John, for having me on. Super excited to be here. A little bit about me. So I come out of a long career of being an engineer and being super mental and being super analytical, and also being trapped by society, the golden handcuffs, people's expectations, 9 to 5, et cetera, et cetera. And it came to a boiling point where I was basically losing my mind and my health and having breakdowns all over my life, from practicing escapism on the weekends to just being completely unfulfilled and unhappy. Finally came to a breaking point where I lost my job, a successful job, and high paycheck, lost it all. And then decided to put all this pain and everything I had learned on how to be super productive and super powerful in conjunction with my other hobby, which was the discovery of self, spirituality, learning what really makes you tick on the inside, bringing those two things together in the midst of crisis and birthing a business as, like you said, a life coach. I call it Life Alchemy because working together, we transform your life from lead into gold. All those parts that are not as shiny, all those parts that are a little painful, a little dark that you don't want to look at. I make it really easy, really simple to turn those around and get new energy moving in your life.
Awesome. So I can definitely attest. I have done some of the full moon ceremonies that Josh does. They're really awesome. I think yours was actually the first full moon ceremony type thing that I had ever done. I think I subscribe to some, as they would say, woo-woo tendencies for sure. But I am not as big on the cycles of the moon as some other people are, but it was really a super cool experience to check out your on Zoom full moon ceremony. So I recommend that everybody go do that. And we also did some healing meditation, kind of guided meditation exercise too, which was really awesome for me. And every couple days, I don't remember which day it is, but every couple days on Facebook, Josh will put out the 3 tarot cards that are all face down, and you had to answer a question and then pick one card, and he will send you your little mini reading of the day, which is super cool. So I have added you as one of the top people that just shows up at the top of my newsfeed for those, so I don't miss them when they come out because I like them. So for those of you listening, you can go and find Josh's page on Facebook, and then you can get some fun little tarot card snippets too. So I really am interested in more about your journey. Well, why did you become an engineer in the first place?
Awesome. Great question. And those tarot posts come out on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Tuesday and Thursday, tarot card post on Facebook.
Yeah, I love it. I love seeing your
show notes.
I love seeing your comments too. It's like, oh, hey. So engineering. So before waking up, and this may be true for a lot of people, you're not really aware of the weight and the power of your own decisions and being able to craft your own life. Being able to write your own story, live your own adventure, create your own masterpiece. And, I just kind of fell into the fold and went through the school system. And the only thing that was a real positive, reinforcement for me was how smart can you be in school, and how achieve can you feel with your grades and your mental pursuits. So okay, I get it. That's how the system works. Follow that road for long enough, get to college, and it was okay, I could be a doctor, a lawyer. It was a doctor, architect, or an engineer. Those were my choices. For myself, some family pressure there. Love my family, nothing against it, just the way it is. And yeah, I came to this crossroads, like doctor, architect, engineer. I was really good at math and science more than like writing and reading. So I decided to check those out for a little while. Finally decided on engineering school because I wanted to do cool stuff like make robots, and I love anime, and I wanted to make like robots and nano machines and things like that, and like some like, Marvel Tony Stark stuff. Find out that was not really how it worked either. It's not quite how it works. All that stuff is not really, you don't just like, start doing those things, and they're never as cool and sexy as they look on movies. So that was my path into engineering. And I kind of stumbled through some parts, like maybe I want to be a chemical engineer, but I don't like chemistry that much. And I got into material science. And then I got into the workforce, where I started to first go down the path of getting my PhD. And I was surrounded with all these like really smart people. I was wearing a lab coat every day, and we were working on like new eco-friendly ceramics, like this cutting edge stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this could change the world. This is amazing. And it does make a difference, but it's not like what you see in the movies. And it's really, really slow. So that wasn't for me. So I went into the workforce, and then the workforce was really fast. And that was actually really exciting for a long time. I went from ceramics into metals, and I was like working with this huge company, like Fortune 100, like I'm the man, and like, I got my shit done, and like, all this is so cool. Like I know the VPs, and that was its own cycle and its own story for a while, until I came to where I started the story, where all that stress and everything is really unhealthy. And the whole like waking up process was taking place, where I started to see like, okay, I'm making choices that I actually don't really want to do. Like becoming an engineer was kind of like like an adopted idea. It wasn't a self-generated idea.
It was more of what you thought you were supposed to do.
Sure. Supposed to do, should do, good for you. Those kinds of messages afterwards.
Yeah. It's like, that's one of those life choices that like follows the recipe, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. That's the step you're supposed to do next. And, doesn't necessarily mean that you like chicken pot pie. It's just how to cook it. Right.
Right.
So, like you were saying that, it wasn't 100% your choice to stop being an engineer. You said you lost your job doing that. And, how long did it take you, of not having your job and your paychecks to be like, I'm definitely going to do this other thing, and this is what it is? Like, what was the path in between the two?
Awesome. Great question. So I actually started I had decided this life coaching journey maybe 3 years prior. I had been thinking about it for five years. And then 3 years out, I was like, okay, I got to start putting this into play, or else I'll end up, like old and miserable, for lack of a better term. That's how they say it scientifically. So I was like, okay, let me put the pieces in play. And I started going to like certifications and classes and things like that. That's 3 years out. 1 year out from losing my job, I was like, okay, I definitely want to do this. Let me hire like a mentor, business coach, etc. Let me like start looking into LLCs and like all this stuff. And then maybe 3 years out or 3 months out from the losing my job point, I was like, okay, I'm going to hire a coach, and I'm going to leave my job in a year. I'm going to build a business in a year. And the universe just moves really fast sometimes, and it just kicked me out like that. And I was like, no, you're building it right now. To answer your question, there wasn't like losing my job and starting a business. There was starting my business and then things clearing out in my life so that it could I could focus on it.
Yeah. So did you feel like the day that they were like, and here's your pink slip, you were like, totally. That was meant to happen. Like, I'm ready. I'm whatever. Roll with the punches.
Actually, no joke. Pretty much. At first, it was a little bit of shock, and then more like, all right, like, I kind of want this. Like, I'm kind of relieved. Like, all right, I kind of feel like a weight lifted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely had more ducks in a row to get going on what you wanted to be doing anyway than most people would have had at that point anyway. So that's cool that you were kind of gearing up to do that. And it was just like, oh, here's 9 months early.
Yeah. That was fortunate. And if anyone out there, if any of your listeners are thinking about, should I do it now? The best time is always now.
Yeah. The time is now. The time is always now. As they say in one of my favoriteest books of all time, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. Have you ever read that book?
I know it. I haven't read it yet.
Oh, you got to read it. It's the best. I think I've read it, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 times.
Oh,
I've read it every single year since I was a sophomore in college. And
wow.
Every time I read it, even though I know exactly what's going to happen and there's sections of it that I've totally memorized, it completely and totally changes my perspective on life every single time I read it.
All right.
And it's just, there's just something about the way that the story is told and how it sinks in. I mean, it's like the lessons in it are so simple, but they're so simple that you don't think about them very often until they're right in front of your face and you're like, oh yeah, duh. Like that's where I've been doing this and that's where I've been doing that. And it kind of, I don't know. It's like a self-help book in disguise. It's great.
You should, have you ever thought about doing like leading like a book club?
I mean, it's been on my list of like, wouldn't that be fun? But you know me and my list. I have a lot of things I have to that I was like, someday I'm going to do this and someday I'm going to do that. So
how fast can you read that book?
I mean, I guess I could lead a book club about that particular book.
Yeah,
I'll put that higher up on my list.
Just that one book, just that one book. Read with Jana, her favorite book. She reads it once a year anyways. And then you could do like a book review on your podcast.
Oh, we should totally do that. Okay. So now everyone out there who's listening to the podcast, you are now tasked with getting a copy of The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman and start reading it. And then when I'm ready to do the book club, I will set it out like a month in advance and I'll say, this is the day we're going to do it. And maybe we'll do like a live Zoom cast and we'll talk all about the book or something like that. So if anyone has any ideas of ways that they think that would be fun, feel free to message us or email us and tell us what we should do for the book club. Awesome. I love this podcast. It's so fun. Yeah. Okay, so I want to fast forward a little bit to you having your life coaching business started. How did you go about getting your first clients?
Okay, so right after losing my job, there was like a 2-month period where I was in like spinning my wheels territory and like total confusion and like self-doubt, like dark night of the soul kind of stuff. And I had to really work on these internal struggles of like, how do I get over the fear of asking for people? What am I really doing? What's my messaging? What's my service? Like, what are my expertise and like things like that? And then getting my first few clients was really just saying out, like, I believe when you say it into the world, it becomes reality. Mm-hmm. So really my first few clients was me literally just saying it out loud to my friends, like, hey guys, I'm ready. I did it. I launched a life coaching business. And a few of my friends stepped up and they said, hey, I want to like work with you. Like, I know what you're about. I trust you. I've seen what you've been doing. There was no Facebook media. There was no like email, nothing. There was just like my word of mouth. And they just knew that I was really into self-development and spirituality and productivity increasing. So yeah, they basically stepped up and said, hey, let me know more. Talked about it, asked them, what are you doing? Like, what do you really want help in? Where do you want to succeed? And I said, hey, yeah, you know what? I can help you.
Cool. How long ago was that?
That was in January of this year.
Awesome. So since then, you have done a lot with your business. I mean, I know we're kind of working in some business coaching groups together, so I'm familiar a little bit with your growth strategies and whatnot, and you know, kind of refining your niche for the type of coaching that you do. And so I just think it's really awesome that you're like, you know, well, I got fired from this job and I wanted to do this thing. I've been wanting to do it for a really long time. I finally got the chance to do it. And hey, guess what? It's working. Like, I think that's so cool that in January of this year, you're like, okay, I got my first couple clients and then global pandemic.
Yeah.
And so far, you've been able to continue to have a roof over your head by being a life coach and not getting another job, correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
That is so dope. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And just I think that I've been familiar with you and your work since probably April, maybe. So April, May, something like that, of this year. And even just in that time, like the consistency of the way that you're putting your business out there on Facebook, and, you know, you have these kind of regular things now that people are expecting. And I've just seen a lot of growth that is obvious in the social sphere. I've seen that in like sending out emails and setting up events and stuff like that. And it can be really difficult, especially in the field where you are, where you're like taking on other people's energy and problems and like sorting all that out. And I think that in the middle of this craziness of this pandemic, where there's so much powerful energy, either good and bad, all over the place. I just applaud you for still having energy to like keep your shit together while dealing with other people's crap all day long. I think that's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So what's your favorite part about being a life coach?
When I help people through something, helping them get that like aha moment, or that like, oh, I can handle this, like finding that confidence in themselves, that healing in themselves, or seeing them change from like a negative energy to a positive energy, positive outlook on life, gives me like this huge wave of energy, makes me feel like I'm up to something important. You know, it makes me feel like I'm making a difference, like I'm really helping people and helping generations. So that's becoming more clear to me, that the more I help people one-on-one, you know, it affects their children, it affects their nieces and nephews, it affects their partners, and it actually has a bigger ripple effect than one person. Even though I'm seeing one person at a time, knowing and feeling that it has a bigger ripple effect is huge payoff.
Awesome. So I'm curious, right now you live in New York City, correct?
I moved to New Jersey.
You moved to New Jersey.
Yeah.
When did you move to New Jersey? During the pandemic?
It was recently. It was a month ago.
Okay. So for the bulk of the pandemic craziness, like you were in New York City. I was wondering if you'll tell people a little bit about what your experience was during the main shutdown of New York City and what that was like.
Pandemic-wise, like New York City during the pandemic?
Mm-hmm.
So I live in Brooklyn, which is away from like the hotspot of Manhattan. And my neighborhood was a mixture of gentrification and then like native New Yorkers and immigrants. So it was a pretty mixed bag. And having everything shut down was kind of nice, because it actually slowed down all of New York enough that like I wasn't constantly distracted doing a million things. Mm-hmm. So if you move to New York, if you live in New York, you are never bored. You have a million things to do. You have a million new restaurants to check out. You have a million friends calling you to hang out. You have a million places to get drinks. You have a million like funny things to do. And that actually gets in the way of things like building business. So having everything shut down was kind of nice. Politically and tension wise, my neighborhood got way more tense. They're trying to do like rallies, and especially when, pandemic. So there was two things that happened. Mm-hmm. There was pandemic, which is like, okay, everybody's scared, go inside. And if you go outside, don't talk to no one, don't look at no one, don't be friendly. Like everyone was so like tense. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to kill me if you say hello. That's what I felt. And then unfortunately, Black Lives Matter movement happened, which I do support, but the Black Lives Matter movement like made things way more tense, and there was like all these rallies, and you know, people started rioting. When it got rioting was really bad. It happened in Manhattan, not in Brooklyn. But my friends who live in Manhattan were complaining they can't sleep. They hear sirens all night. People tried to break into the building next to theirs, like really crazy stuff. And then in my neighborhood, there was kind of like a little bit of tension between, do we do this peacefully or do we do this aggressively? And like the community organizers went like back and forth, and finally it was more peaceful protests and marching, things like that.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that the peaceful protests and marches kind of
I
Was
just
the
relived,
general consensus of the way to go.
I just relived that. It was kind of like, whoa. I kept like, now I haven't thought about it in a while, but whew.
Yeah, I mean, not to say that I don't understand why people would riot. I totally understand why people would riot in a situation like that. And I don't condone violence, but I do understand why people would get to the point where they're that frustrated that that is the only way that they can see that would actually make change. And I hate to say it, but in a lot of ways, when there are, threats of things like that politics and change in society does happen faster than it would if people were just doing peaceful marches all the time, which is kind of crazy that it takes the threat of violence and unrest to make our society make change like that. I wish it wasn't that way, but the way that we're currently set up, it is. So
Can I add to that?
sure.
I believe that peaceful protesting and marching is the way to go, even though there's always that like tension of things could break down and things could turn violent. I do think that that peaceful is the way to go, and I think it's been seen in certain examples in history. Like there's always violence, right? There's always violence, but the leader of the movement is always peaceful.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I definitely am. I'm all for peaceful protesting. And it does scare me how even peaceful protesters are assaulted and run over by cars all the time. And that the dialogue in this country for a lot of people has changed to be like, oh, you're out protesting, you must be a troublemaker. And that people are, you see posts all the time where there's always somebody in the comments is always like, oh, they're in the street, let's run them over. I'm like, who are you? Like, would you actually say that to somebody's face, or would you just say that in like the safety of the online comment section? Like that. I think that when the world did get really digital, that people got so distanced from each other. And it's the same reason that online bullying is so prevalent for kids in school. It's just like, it's so much easier to talk shit and make fun of somebody online in a way that you would never do if you could actually see that person's face when you did or said whatever you were going to say.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole lot more people who would post on somebody's page and be like, whatever, you're fat and ugly or something, than would actually say that to someone's face. And I just think that of all the ways that the internet and social media has brought so many people together, that I think we need to, as a society as a whole, we need to work hard to fight against that impersonal aspect of it, where you can, say and do things to somebody without recognizing what consequences they actually have. And it's so easy to kind of go off the rails and be angry on somebody's Facebook post about whatever they're talking about. It happens to me too. I kind of get sucked into, political comments and stuff. And it makes it easy to forget that there's actually a person on the other side of that comment box who's going to read it, and it's going to affect their life. And I think we all we need more of this and less of this in our lives, more face-to-face talking and less typing communication back and forth. And
yeah, that's I like how you said that at the end there. Like, remember there's someone else on the other end of that comment box, right? Remember that in your interactions, whether they're on Facebook, social media, business, talking, connecting, dating, like that's another person you're dealing with, right? That person has dreams, aspirations, they feel pain, they have a capability to cause harm, they have the capability to create love, So it is important to remember you're dealing with a person, not an idea. You're dealing with a person that has an idea, or, that stands for something, but you're still dealing with a person.
Right. And while it is important to still try to engage with people, and if there's someone is saying or doing something that you really don't agree with at all, I'm not saying for people to not have opinions and not to, try to justify their opinions as long as you've got good facts to back them up. But I think that we have to pick our battles too, and think about the fact that, yes, you may feel like, ranting against some Trump supporter on Facebook and freaking out in the comment box or whatever, is going to make you feel like you said your piece for 2 seconds. But you also got to remember that, like, you feeling angry about that is going to follow you around for the rest of your day if you let it. And the person who's on the other end of that box, like, they might get riled up, and then they might go and get coffee at the drive-thru and might be a total dick to the person working in the window, even though if they hadn't had that interaction before, they might not have done that. They might have just been in an okay mood for the rest of the day. And so we have to remember that there are other people on the other end, and that those people are interacting with other people for the rest of their day. And they, might have kids and families, and who knows, like, what their situation is, like who their parents were and brought them into believe the way that they're believing right now, and what horrible shit might have happened to them before they ended up in that Facebook chat box, So this conversation took a weird turn, but I think that it's like, I just think it's important in this day and age, especially in like the height of the craziness that we're in the middle of 2020 right now, to just, remember that the point of my life anyway is to bring people together, and not to push people apart. So
beautifully said.
We should all do our best to do that.
I would just say, hey, look, guys, it's not over. And don't forget that you have the capability to really make a difference. You have the capability of really giving back to people you love first and foremost. First and foremost, yourself. Take care of yourself. Show up bigger for the people you love. And then find creative ways to give back to them. You don't need money. You just need your attention. You just need your time. You just need your heart. And just start making the world a better place, starting with what's in front of you.
Awesome. I love that. Okay. So at the end of all the episodes, I ask all the guests the same 5 questions, because I think it's really interesting how different people will answer the same question in a different way. And I was wondering if at the very end of the show, would you be willing to do like a 5-minute, whatever, little guided meditation thing to get our guests feeling good at the end of the show?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll do the 5 questions, and then we'll end on our little zone out meditation. Yay! I'm so excited. Okay, the first question is: tell me about an experience that you had in your life that changed who you are. Like one moment where after that one moment you're like, whoa, everything is totally different.
Oh, wow. Getting into there was this one like when I first started to meditate, I used apps on my phone, and they get you to like a certain point. But then I went to a meditation class with a monk, with a venerable Buddhist monk. His name is Thupten Punsak, one of my teachers. He's been a venerable monk for over 20 years. And in that meditation, he guided us so well that I could actually feel my brain. And at that point, I kind of freaked out. I was like, whoa, I've never felt my brain before. And from that point on, I was like, well, meditation is some other stuff. I got to check this out the real way. Like, no apps. I got to figure out how people really do this, like the pros.
That is so cool. Now I think about it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that I feel my brain all the time, but I don't know how to not feel my brain. Maybe it's because I get a lot of headaches, so I'm pretty in tune to the way that my brain feels inside of my head. Okay, number 2. When you feel defeated or overcome, what do you tell yourself to keep going?
This is part of the process. Trust yourself. Trust the process. This is what you want. This is leading to something better.
Okay. Number 3. Tell me about a way that you overcame a failure or a mistake and what you learned from it.
So in the business world and starting a business, there have been a lot of things I've done that I would claim as mistakes. But the overcoming of it, or getting through it, is seeing what worked and what didn't work, and then creating it again, leaning on the positive. So this goes for launching events, launching offerings, writing emails, working with clients, all those things. You're going to mess up. And the fastest way to get through it is don't look at it as a mess up. Don't look at it as a failure. Just look at it as a way of learning.
Okay. Question number 4. What one trait or habit is most responsible for keeping you on track?
That's a great question. I've never been asked that before. I would say I have a really powerful level of self-awareness. And with that self-awareness, seeing like, okay, I'm not so productive today. I don't feel good today. I've been, not watching what I eat and how I sleep for so long. And I see that I'm procrastinating and I can see that I'm distracting myself. With that level of self-awareness, being able to make like the opposite choice, which is really a muscle that you have to train to like do the thing that you're avoiding, do the thing that you're uncomfortable with, do the thing that is unknown and like kind of scary.
Mm-hmm. It definitely makes sense. I certainly have noticed myself like not eating as well as I should be, and definitely not sleeping as much as I probably should be. Throughout the pandemic, sleeping is definitely harder for me. It was never hard for me before the pandemic, and now it's just like I can't shut my brain off at night. It just keeps thinking. It's not necessarily thinking about things that are bad, but I just like keep thinking, and I think it's more being more aware of how short life can be, that I'm just like, I can't take any minute to not like think about stuff and deal with stuff and plan and scheme and reflect. It's just like, how could I sleep when I have all this stuff to do,
Live life to the fullest.
All right. Number 5, what is the best piece of advice that you have ever received? And what piece of advice would you give to other people?
The best piece of advice that I've ever received. Well, I received some advice recently. There's 2 ways to solve a problem. Avoid it or go through it. And I think that's a powerful piece of advice. That's one I'm taking for myself to work on. And then something I would offer to everyone else is that whatever you're seeking is seeking you.
Can you talk more about that?
Sure. So from a metaphysical standpoint, like what you're seeking is a vibration. So if you're seeking love, you're seeking for the vibration of love. If you're seeking abundance, that's the vibration of abundance. And those 2 vibrations from outside, abundance is trying to come to you. You just need to accept it in its forms. Love is trying to come to you. You just need to accept it in its forms. Because you're never given a desire that you're not capable of completing. Mm-hmm. Some way, somehow, you have all the talents, all the skills inside of you to make your wildest dreams come true.
So is there an aspect to that you have to, it might not be coming to you in the form that you expect it would be, but you have to be open to however it shows up? Definitely.
Yeah, it might not be the form you're expecting, which is where the mind gets in the way. The mind gets in the way with things like expectations, distractions, attachments. And then when you're not open to it, you're actually actively blocking it. So you have to open up into like receiving and allowing what is to come to you.
Awesome. I think I have to work on that. I always have to work on that, I think. Okay, so that's the last question. So if you want to take us out with a lovely little meditation, that would be awesome.
Awesome. Let's go like 3 to 5 minutes.
Sure.
And all you got to do is sit comfortably, lean back, recline a little bit, close your eyes. And we're just going to feel into the body wherever it is. Just kind of like notice it with your attention, with your awareness, with your mind's eye. You may notice aches, pains. You may notice where you're touching your chair. And in that noticing, do not label it as good or bad. It just is what it is. And with your inner voice, asking yourself to relax. Noticing how the body shifts, calms down. Releasing any tension in the eyebrows, the shoulders, and the hips. Now focusing all of your attention on your nose. Start to notice the breath coming in and out of your nose. Start to notice the speed of your breath. The sound of your breath. The temperature of the air. And preparing for one big inhale. 3, 2, 1. Inhale. And exhale. When you're ready, opening your eyes.
That was so nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana.
So, will you tell everyone where they can find you on the interwebs? If you got like a Instagram or whatever.
Please connect with me first on Facebook, Josh Tan. It's facebook.com/JoshTan5D. And John, if you could link that up, that'd be great.
I will.
And then I'm on Instagram as Josh5D, and my website is joshtan, joshtan.net. But please connect with me on Facebook first. I do everything through Facebook as my primary. Lots of free stuff, lots of posting, lots of content, and I have a free group where I do weekly meditations, weekly classes and master classes, free trainings, all sorts of good stuff. Josh Tan on Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the Reach to Stars podcast. And hopefully this episode will help people chill the hell out.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Have a lovely day.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
A single interaction has the power to change your life forever. This is a place for the stories of those moments. Stories of pursuing dreams, overcoming tragedy and failure, of coming back to life after so much of what feels like dying, of continuing on with only a vision as a map. This is the place where those moments live on. Come sit by the fire, look up at the stars, and be forever changed too.
Thank you for being with us on the Reach the Stars podcast. Our theme music is generously provided by Byrocratic. You can find him on bandcamp.com. Thank you to all of our current patrons, guests, and everyone else who helps make this dream a reality. We are so proud to be building this amazing community with all of you. If you love this podcast, please consider sharing with a friend, leaving a review on iTunes, and becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/reachthestars. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see the videos of these conversations. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, do something cool and tell us about it.